Hello and welcome to this edition of What's New in RM Unify. My name is Mark House, I'm the Senior Product Manager and I'm here to talk about release 340. Okay, so let's talk about the agenda. We're going to be talking about two major elements of this month's release. The first is configurable year of entry offset for student username format, and the second is the much anticipated multi-factor authentication. We'll then do a little bit about coming soon, particularly vanilla network provisioning and the roadmap. So let's get going. So configurable year of entry offset for student username format. It's a bit of a mouthful, but the problem we're trying to solve is this. RM Unify takes the user's year of entry as the year that they entered their first year of education, in other words year 1. And some customers like to use this year of entry as part of the student's username. Now there's a problem because if you're a secondary school, for example, what you might want to have is the student's username as a year 7 entry rather than their year 1 entry. So how have we tried to solve that? Well, when you set up user provisioning in RM Unify, when you're drawing from the MIS, then you get the option here of how you'd like that format to look. And there is at the moment, as you see, the option of putting in a year of entry element. But as I've just explained, until the recent change, it'll always take the year 1 year of that student. So we've added this new feature in here now where you'll be able to select a particular year group. So let's have a look at that in action. Now, when I try this on into the management console here, it's going to ask me some multi-factor authentication. We're going to come back to that in a little while. But you can see at the moment, because I'm a super admin on this account, it's saying you need to have a separate authentication method. So I currently have my phone out. My phone is an authenticator. It's going to reveal the 6-digit number. I can put that in. And it'll allow me to get into the management area. Okay, so in here, for the purposes of the demonstration, we're going to say that we're going to use create mode, and that'll bring up the thing I just now showed you where you can choose how you'd like to do it. And it might be that I want to use the 2-digit year of entry. And now you'll see this new feature here, and it says, okay, so what I'd like to do in fact is have year 7 as my year of entry from the children in my school, rather than the year 1, which was previously the case. So hopefully that's a new addition which will give you or give a lot of customers what they're looking for. This is a good example of where we roll things out in RM Unify and we then listen to customers, and where we have to make a change, where we do so to make it the best possible experience. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So the second thing then is multi-factor authentication, and I'm sure that many of you use this in other parts of your lives. The principle of multi-factor authentication is to have a 2-step process in logging into a particular system, and it usually involves something you know, which is going to be your username and password, matched with something you have, which is in this case going to be a telephone, a smartphone with an authenticator on. So we've got a Google authenticator or a Microsoft authenticator. Let's have a look at this in action. So you saw a second ago when I tried to come into this particular area, it asked me to authenticate in. It gave me a little flash up and a 6-digit code. So where do I configure that as an admin? Well, down in the management area here, you'll see a new line called multi-factor authentication, and it takes me to this. What it allows me to do is to select from my single sign-on apps. Now in this particular demonstration area, there are only 2 single sign-on apps available, and they've both been provisioned. But if there were more and I click on here, you'd see more underneath here. And once I've got them up on here, I'm able to say, okay, well, how do I want this single sign-on app to behave? By role, I can say, well, I don't want single sign-on turned on. I can make it optional, or I can make it required. The optional feature is quite useful if you have roles beyond these ones. So say, for example, you have a senior leadership team and you want to turn on Office 365 multi-factor authentication for senior leaders but not for all staff. You would select optional here, and you would instruct your senior leaders that they have to sign in as part of policy using two-factor authentication, but the other teaching staff do not. At the top here, there's also a little tick that you see I've ticked here that requires multi-factor authentication for super admin access to the management console. And again, I would recommend that is what you'll do. So by using this dashboard here, you can granulate your multi-factor authentication across all of your single sign-on apps in one easy-to-use dashboard. What about for the end user? Let's get up our guy Johnny Smith here as an end user. So this is a teacher, for example. And the teacher here could be challenged to two-factor in to one of these things here. To set it up, Johnny would need to come to his profile, okay, and he'll see multi-factor authentication, and it'll say, right, would you like to generate a multi-factor authentication code? And then the instructions come up. And for those of you who've done this before, you know it's a case of getting the authenticator app onto your phone. They're all free, and you can get them from these various stores here. Okay, and then scanning in the barcode, putting in a confirmation code, and then you're good to go. And the next time that Johnny comes in as challenged, he will need to put in that confirmation code to get to the app that he's hoping to use. Okay, so some questions about, let's move this off here, questions about multi-factor authentication. So the first question is, do I have to get my phone out whenever I access RM Unify? Okay, well the answer is no. Access to the launchpad is never protected to multi-factor authentication. The RM Unify admin chooses to protect specific cloud apps themselves. So the prompt for a verification code is seen when accessing one of those apps after clicking the app tile on the launchpad. Does RM Unify remember that I provided a verification code for the entire session? Yes, it does. So every time that I use the verification code, I need to use it once. So if I'm an admin, you saw me earlier on authenticating as the admin, I will no longer need to authenticate to any of the other apps. For a teacher, if they authenticate once into one of the apps, they're then authenticated into everything. Effectively, it's RM Unify which is doing the authentication on behalf of the apps. Once you sign out or you shut down the browser, then of course the next time you come on you would need to authenticate. What if I get my verification code wrong? When you get prompted for multi-factor authentication, you get 5 chances to type in a valid code. After these chances have been used up, the account is locked out for 1 minute and you'll be signed out. The account does automatically unlock after 1 minute and you can try again. If your code repeatedly gets rejected, it's possible you're providing a verification code from the wrong account. Check that the user you are signed into RM Unify matches the account name shown in the Authenticator app. What if I have multiple RM Unify accounts? You can link multiple RM Unify accounts to a single Authenticator app. You do not need one device per Unify account. Can I use a shared mobile device to generate the verification code? Yes, although this does not provide quite the same level of security as a one-to-one device. On multi-user shared devices, for example, the device is always logged on, the Authenticator app on the device can be linked to many accounts in RM Unify. When the Authenticator app is opened, the username of all RM Unify accounts will be listed so you can identify the correct verification code to enter. On single shared user devices, i.e. those you need to log on to, the Authenticator app will just show the RM Unify accounts that have been connected to the device for your user. Can I link an account to multiple devices? Yes, this is possible and not recommended in most cases. During the multi-factor authentication enrollment process, you snap a QR code, as you saw earlier, with a camera to link the device to your account. At this time, it is possible to snap the QR code over multiple devices so that they can be used to provide the verification code. Should we use personal devices of school-owned devices to generate the verification code? This is a policy decision really for your school. There's no right or wrong answer. Many organizations allow both devices to be used, as there is limited security implication for using a personal device. For school-owned, managed devices, there are a couple of fringe benefits to be aware of. You could, for example, deploy the Authenticator app using your MDM tools. And the second one is a lock screen password policy can be enforced on the device, so then you've actually got almost triple multi-factor authentication. What ways are there to verify my ID with multi-factor authentication? Do I need a G Suite account to get the Authenticator app? Let's talk about both of those. There are we use time-based one-time password standard, which supports by dozens of smartphone apps, Windows, Linux, browser extensions. However, we only test the process with the following recommended apps. So you can use Google Authenticator on iOS, Google Authenticator on Android, or you can use the Windows Phone Microsoft Authenticator. You do not need a G Suite or Google account. So long as you have an iOS, Android, or Windows Phone, you can download the Authenticator app to use it. What are my options if I do not own a smartphone or if the camera is disabled? We currently, unfortunately, do not currently support alternative mechanisms to generate the authenticator codes, so it is going to be a smartphone camera only system at the moment. Do I need connectivity on my smartphone to run the Authenticator app? No, you don't. The device running the Authenticator app does not need a network connection, so you can run it without Wi-Fi or mobile data. What levels of MFI can I set up? Well, you saw that in the demonstration earlier. You can set up to have it as off, optional, or required. As an RM Unify admin, how can I configure which apps require MFA? Again, we saw that in the demonstration, okay, where you had the management console and you can select your single sign-on apps, and then you can choose which ones need to have or you want to have multi-factor for and which ones you don't. Can I choose to bypass multi-factor authentication for devices on my local network? At the moment, no, you do need to sign in using multi-factor authentication on the way in. Okay, we are planning to do some work using to enable that to be bypassed, but at the moment, okay, you do need you to sign in using multi-factor authentication wherever you are when you join on to RM Unify. What if the user forgets their device but the app requires multi-factor authentication? There is no way to bypass multi-factor authentication for a single user. Therefore, the RM Unify admin will need to clear the MFA enrollment for the user to ensure they have access to a separate device and can generate an MFA verification code for them. So if they don't have a device, it's over to the admin to sort people out. Is there any impact on MFA if I change the username of a user? When a user enrolls in MFA, the Authenticator app captures the username at that point and shows it in the app. If you later change the username of the user, the Authenticator app will still show the old username, but the verification codes generated will still be valid. So the user could continue like this with no ill effects, but in the long term it might cause confusion to the user if they use the Authenticator app for other accounts. To rectify this issue, the user should remove the account from the Authenticator app, and RM Unify admin can remove their MFA enrollment. This allows the user to re-enroll in MFA, snapping the new QR code, which will show the correct username in the Authenticator app. Is there any impact of the user transfers between establishments? Well, the user stays enrolled in MFA. This is a property of their user account. However, the set of apps they're protected by the MFA may differ in the new establishment. This means that the user's experience of when they get prompted for the verification code may change after they have transferred. How does this work with Office 365 Azure AD Connect multi-factor authentication? So the two multi-factor authentication processes are entirely independent. We recommend you choose to use either RM Unify multi-factor authentication or Office 365 MFA. Don't use both. If you were to enable both, you'd require to answer the RM Unify MFA challenge first, and then you'd also have to do the Office 365 challenge later. And finally, how does this work with G Suite two-step verification? When the user signs into G Suite via RM, the G Suite two-step verification is not applied. Please see the SSO note in the requirements section of the article, which I'll point to in a minute, which will give you more information. Okay, so if you do want more information about those questions or anything else to do with it, the simple way to find stuff is to go to Google and type in RM Unify MFA, and when you do that, it'll link out to this document, and this document is on our tech article for this one you're looking for. There's RM Unify Multi-Factor Authentication, and it gives you all the details, including the answers to the questions I just now ran through. Okay, so that's multi-factor authentication. Oh, just one final thing while I remember. Almost forgot my script there. Okay, if you're using multi-factor authentication in the user audit, what we should be able to see here is we can see that multi-factor authentication is reported in the audit area. So you are obviously able to check exactly when people have and have not enrolled into the multi-factor authentication. It's all audited in here, which is great. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So coming soon in RM Unify. This has been bubbling for a while. For those who've been following, you know that network provisioning is the facility where we can take users from our MIS, we can pass them into RM Unify, but we can then also feed them back into the Active Directory. So this really does give you that single point of truth. Up until this point, we've been running it on our CC4 networks, but from next month we'll be able to release it for vanilla networks. So in V342, which is currently scheduled for around about the first week of July 2018, you'll be able to have vanilla network provisioning. So watch out for more details about that coming up. And remember, all of our information is available on the roadmap. Just go to Google, type in RM Unify roadmap, and you will see everything you need. So thank you for joining me this morning. I hope that was useful, and I look forward to seeing you in the next edition of What's New in RM Unify. Thank you very much.